I really like these shows that go against the grain of the superhero norm. Shows like The Boys and Invincible that take a gory and arguably more realistic take of what a world full of superpowered people could really be like. We often look at shows like Marvel where the heroes tend to be mostly selfless in their endeavors, always with the good of the world at the center of their character, and somehow, despite fighting literal gods, no one really dies. Or at least the casualties are underwhelming, to say the least. But not in The Boys. Anyone can get knocked off at any time. But moving on. Gen V starts about 8 years before the main story of The Boys. We're introduced to our main character, Marie Moreau, and her sister, Annabeth. Trying to replicate a photo they saw on social media while their parents watch the news. Their dad gets really excited as the infamous A-Train gets accepted into the Seven as the very first black man in the Seven. Marie ends up getting her period for the first time, and as most superhero stories go, her hitting puberty is what causes her powers to awaken. But unlike most stories, where the heroes freak out and no one is hurt too badly, Mari ends up accidentally killing her parents, and her sister Annabeth is a witness to it all. From there, she seems to go to an orphanage for Supes, where she hones her abilities so she can get into Godolkin University, and from there hopefully become a hero and prove to her sister, wherever she is that she's not a monster. But that's easier said than done. There's a lot of pressure for Mari to succeed because she's 18 now, and if she doesn't do well in the university, she'll be sent away to a facility for superpowered adults. We see a girl basically get kidnapped and taken there in episode 1, and we even see it later on with Luke's brother Sam. Supes seem to be treated like prisoners here, but Godolkin doesn't seem that much better if we're being honest. Godolkin is like an intro to the world of superheroes, not just through their various classes like crime fighting, branding, or performing arts. In this university, in many cases you're expected to be someone you're not and potentially be a part of things you don't want to be a part of. Like in the main series, how a lot of the heroes are simply just putting on an act, reading on scripts and saying things they don't really believe just so they can get ahead, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. When we get introduced to Godolkin University, it seems more like a prison than a school at first, with these metal detectors. At least that's what I think these are, and these thick iron-barred windows that don't open. I'm sure this has something to do with the woods, where they experiment on superpowered people, instead of kids just flying out the window like Emma implies. Emma is Mari's roommate, a YouTuber who's struggling with her image both on and offline. She has the power to turn small, but in order for her to do that, she has to purge, force herself to throw up, which is really disgusting and really painful. Of course, there is a message there, I'm pretty sure, like what Justine talks about how women have to hurt themselves to live to these unattainable beauty standards because of the patriarchy. But I find it funny because in that moment, the patriarchy is not hurting anybody. She was, by spinning a narrative about someone else's issues so she could get views and ratings. Then when she tries to apologize, she later says,
"You filming this? I want everyone to know how sorry I am."
Once again, only looking out for herself and her image, not Emma and her feelings about the matter. But stuff like this is pretty common in The Boys. Media is everything, and when you control it, you can get away with basically anything. Like in a brief moment when we see the attack on Vought Tower by Soldier Boy, Butcher, Huey, Starlight, and Maeve has already been covered up as a Russian attack. Then when Luke explodes after killing Brink, it's made to seem like he had some manic drug-induced episode, and immediately made out to be a monster by those who don't know the truth. But in reality, Luke was a decent guy. Coming into the series, you kind of expect him to be, at least in my opinion, the typical popular guy in a YA story. He's a hot jerk with connections who takes an interest in the mysterious new girl even though he already has a hot girlfriend. But no, Luke is genuinely a good guy. He is talented, he does have connections and a hot girlfriend, but he's more than just some superhero wannabe with a chip on his shoulder who only cares about himself. In this world, being a hero is basically everything, and when fame is being offered to him on a silver platter, he hesitates. This is our first clue that things aren't what they seem here. Then when he gives Mari the first real piece of advice she's gotten since she's gotten here.
Being a hero is, it's not what you think. You know, if you're gonna do this, make sure you do it for you.
And honestly, I think it's a shame he got killed so soon. I fully expected him to be a main character, not just a recurring one via flashbacks and videos. Still though, there is a lot to unpack with Gen V. This season seems to be revolving around this underground facility known as the Woods, a place beneath the school where Supes are being experimented on. Luke states that he and his brother were both in the woods at one point, but if that's the case, how did he get out and why is Sam still in there? And who else is in there as well? But let me take a step back for a moment and look back at our main cast. I've already touched on Mari, Emma, and Luke, but there's also Andre, another pivotal character to the story. Andre is ranked number 3rd at Godolkin University in the first episode, and has the power to manipulate metal. He's Luke's best friend, and also under a lot of pressure after his death. His father was a superhero before him, Polarity, and essentially expects his son to be his second coming. Often seems as if the dad cares more about fame and flashing lights more than his own son's well-being. His best friend just died in the most horrific way, and he just tells him to smile and wave like nothing happened. Then there's Kate, Luke's girlfriend, who initially seems to come across as the typical popular mean girl, but she's a much more kind-hearted person than you would think, at least from what we see in the first 3 episodes. Kate has a power called pushing, which is essentially mind control, but in order to use it, she has to touch you first. She's always wearing gloves so as to not accidentally push someone in regular conversation. Kate reminds me of Elsa in a way because of that, because they both wear gloves as a way to dampen their powers, out of an innate fear of them. Though it's not explicitly shown for Kate at first, who has no problem using her powers when necessary, it does become clear that there is a layer of trauma when it comes to them, because she accidentally got rid of her brother. Jordan Lee is the rank 2 at the start of Gen V, and they have the power to switch genders at will. And I have to admit, the way they did this power is really cool. The fact that each gender seems to have its own set of abilities is honestly amazing. Jordan's male form seems to be about strength and durability, while their female form, while not as strong or tough, has the ability to produce force fields or whatever these pulses are that can send people flying. The way they utilize these powers of their different forms is so fluid and well done, it's no wonder they got rank 2. Jordan is also portrayed as a bit of a jerk when they first get introduced, since they deny Marie entry to the crime-fighting class over things that are arguably superficial in the grand scheme of things.
Look, most freshmen show up, they think they'll major in crime fighting, crash their combat and forensics classes, and score a city contract, but they won't. I mean, you're competing with kids who have cleared homicide cases, who have over 1 million followers, and you don't even have an Insta.
But this is how the world of The Boys works. Media, publicity, likability. Heroes aren't valued for their merits, or even their effectiveness all that much. People, mainly the higher-ups, only care about what they can use you for and what they can gain. If they don't feel like they can gain much from you, then they'll toss you aside. The school rankings aren't even for who's doing the best hero-wise. It's a popularity contest, a narrative that people can spin and vote on as they see fit. Mari reaches rank 8 having never fought another super in her life that we know of, whereas Jordan is pushed down to 5 for being bigender. The higher-ups find Jordan confusing because they can't be identified with one gender, so Jordan has the odds stacked against them from the start, especially now since they've lost Brink as a supporter. It's clear that the school and Vought mostly just tolerate them. Jordan is struggling, though seeming like an a-hole sometimes. They really just want to be understood and accepted, which is something I'm sure resonates with a lot of people in the world, and I'm interested to see what happens with them as the story moves forward, especially with all the shady stuff going on under the school. The Woods, as I mentioned before, the Woods is a underground facility where it seems supers are being experimented on. For what, we don't know, just that it's happening. Luke's brother Sam, who was believed to be dead, tries to escape in episode 1, but gets stopped by Marie and Andre, who are told he's just on drugs. Sam also appears to Luke in these strange visions, but he's much younger than he is now. It seems like Luke has amnesia of some kind and doesn't fully remember the Woods at first. After all, he says he's been having nightmares about trees but doesn't know what they mean at the start. He has a series of visions. When he talks to Brink, he hears his brother's voice. When he's at the club, and then when he wakes up in his room. It's unclear, honestly, if this is just amnesia or perhaps Sam is actually communicating to him psychically. We know his powers is super strength, but who knows if he has others. It wouldn't be the first time someone had multiple powers in the story. If he could mess with your mind, then I suppose that's all the more reason they're keeping him doped up so he doesn't mess with any of them. Luke kills Brink once he remembers the Woods and later self-destructs. Before his death, he tells Andre that his dad has the answer. Andre tries to make sense of Luke's death and tries to enlist the help of Marie, but she wants nothing to do with it. She barely knows any of them, and on her first night out with them, Andre almost murders someone and she has to fix it. And then she almost gets expelled because Brink wants to cover for them. She doesn't seem to care about the truth like most YA protagonists. She just wants to make something out of her life and get her sister back. But despite saying she wants to keep her head down, she seems to adapt to the high life rather quickly. She hesitates at first, but after a while she starts to enjoy the cameras and flashing lights. at least when they aren't coming from phones being shoved in her face all the time. So it's a wonder who she'll really become, especially with the dean in her ear. Andre tries asking his dad if Luke left anything to him, and he doesn't seem to catch on, only to later find out that Luke meant the statue of his dad, and he finds a video of Luke explaining the whole woods situation, and decides he's going to find out the truth. Later, finding the supposed entrance to the woods only to be caught and later saved by Kate, who passes out from using her powers too much. Then we go to episode 3, where we see Sam in a flashback, who ends up doing a fatality on one of the guards during this episode. It seems that Compound V has some unintended side effects, like Sam being a schizophrenic. He can't always tell the real from the fake, and to be aware that he's losing his mind doesn't do him any favors, especially when it's accompanied by the fact that his parents are basically the ones who did this to him. Parents seem to be a bit of a central theme in episode 3, as we're introduced to the pressure some of the students have to put up with when it comes to family, like Andre, whose father wants to use the gala as a way to secure votes and support for his son, Emma, whose mother comes to visit her and tries to get her on a reality show and makes her daughter feel insecure and self-conscious, Jordan, whose parents come to visit them and help them get support at the gala, but they don't seem very supportive of Jordan themselves. Jordan's parents, mainly their dad, doesn't seem to like the fact that they can switch between genders.
I'm no bigot. I get a lot of kids don't have a choice, but you do. You can be a boy forever if you want. Sometimes I think you change into a girl just to spite me.
Marie is also being paraded around by the dean, who I believe she's starting to see as a maternal figure, though that probably isn't a great idea. Emma has a bit of a falling out with her mother over trying to make a reality show centered around her eating disorder, and even calls her out for being the one who taught her how to purge in the first place. Andre lets his dad know what's really going on, and he tells him to stop before he gets himself killed. Jordan confronts their father and makes it known their identity isn't tied to their gender. Later, Andre gets Emma to sneak into the woods to find Sam. She does and convinces him to help her by saying that Luke sent her, but omits the fact that he's dead. This is definitely going to come back to bite her later, especially if she and Sam end up becoming a thing, because they do seem to have a bit of a vibe going on, but maybe that's just me. But before we can even consider that, Emma kills a guard to save Sam, and then ends up getting captured, at least from what we can see. And now we're left to wonder how or if they are going to get out of this. Gen V is honestly a really good spin-off series so far, and I feel like even if it hadn't been a part of the Boys universe, I would still watch it. The show also seems to be coming out at the right time too, and what I mean by that is, when I think of Gen V, I also think of my own generation, Gen Z. How Gen Z is getting older, graduating from high school, going to college, getting jobs and pursuing careers, and overall just trying to figure ourselves out in the world, minus the superpowers and experiments, of course. Gen V really seems to be tackling the idea of who am I? But I feel like it's often used to define that messy period of your teen years and your 20s where most of us are just making things up as we go. They do well to show this with their characters, how life isn't always what you imagine. Mari thinks that a strong will and good intentions will get her where she wants to go, but learns quickly that merit sometimes means nothing in the hero world. Andre wants to be a good guy, a real hero, to do some real good, but society and his family keep telling him otherwise and that he needs to look out for himself. Emma struggles with her image, and I believe she desperately wants to make a new one for herself. Jordan wants to be seen and accepted, given the credit they rightfully deserve, to be seen for what they can do, who they are, not what they look like. And maybe I'm reading into it, but the show really seems to capture that feeling of being lost, that struggle to figure yourself out, to know what you want to do, but still being told by others what you should do, and that isn't always right. So I'm eager to see what paths they take as the story continues, and to see what's actually going on in the woods. What are they testing for in there, and why did Luke seem to have amnesia? In every vision he sees Sam, he's younger, which would imply that they were very young when they went to the woods. Brink says,
"You remember when we first met? I had to sit on a folding chair in your folks' living room because you kept burning holes in the furniture. Shy little nothing, could barely make eye contact."
So part of me wonders if he and his brother were taken to the woods because they couldn't control their powers, and maybe Sam's schizophrenia isn't related to Compound V at all. Maybe it could be a side effect of whatever they've been doing to him in the woods. We see a glimpse of him being experimented on in the woods. The doctor seems to hammer a needle into the base of his spine. In The Boys, I'm pretty sure Compound V is injected into the spine, and that's how people get their powers. So it makes me wonder if they're trying to extract the V through his spinal fluid for whatever reason. Or maybe it's just a punishment like the dean kind of suggests. But either way, there is a lot to learn, and I cannot wait for episode 4 this Friday. You guys let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next time.